Welcome to the Do Everything with Love podcast. This is your boy, Davey.
Yo, what's up, Myron?
Steven.
And we also have very, very special guests with us today. To my right, we have Dante, who's the leader and producer of Bridgeway Community Church's Sunday services. They're also a local church here in Columbia, Maryland, of over 10,000 members. And we're so glad to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
You go by Davey?
I go by Davey. It's my alias now.
When?
It's just something new, you know what I'm saying?
It's
a good question.
And
how new is it, though?
I just started doing it probably like this year.
Really?
Yeah, Davey.
Yeah. You corroborate that? Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard of
Davey. Yeah, it's I feel like it's gonna be my new when I become a future mega producer, Davey, you on the track.
I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't dislike it.
All right, there you go. I figured that's my stage, my stage name, Davey. Our other very special guest that we have here with us today is none other than Shay Un, otherwise known as Shay Uno. He's a local MC, rapper here in the DMV. He also is a co-pastor of One Shot Church in Silver Spring, Maryland. They pride themselves on being a house church, starting a cell network of future house churches as well. So I'm so glad to have you on the show with us today.
What's up, Davey? Don't even feel right. Glad to be here. Yes. What's up, everybody? Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Other than his new alias.
Yes, that's right.
Can I pitch something that you do on the tracks when you produce? You be like, it's Davey, it's Davey, baby.
It's Davey, baby.
You can have that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That'll be your signature.
Hey, you know what? It's Davey, baby.
It's Davey, baby.
Dante, real quick, do you want to shout out your handle, your Insta handle?
Sure, it's Dante Shepherd.
As creative as possible, baby.
How you spell that last name, though?
SHEPPARD.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. And Shay, how about you, man? Shout yourself out, brother.
Sure thing, I'll try my new moniker too. Shay like the butter, Uno like the number.
Yo, come on.
SHE_UNO. Would love to connect with you guys.
You know. All right. So with that being said, I'm just so glad that we're starting this podcast, Do Everything with Love. This is a podcast for creatives. Hopefully our dialogue and conversation cultivates a community for creatives to listen into and hopefully help you in your creative journey as well. Hey, Myron, take it away.
Yeah. So we want to just check in with the brothers since we actually got an all-male cast. Amber, I know she's usually here, but she has other things going on in her life. We want to give her space and time, and everybody's got personal lives. We want to make sure that everybody can deal with their stuff.
Hey,
we're in love, amen.
Health is wealth.
Yeah, health is wealth. Check in. How's everybody doing? Wadi, I see you on the far end. How's life?
Life is good.
Well, I just helped you with your banister just now.
Well, yeah.
Pre-show recording, we're just doing a little home improvement.
There's home improvement going on around here. Yeah. Between that and playing at a couple weddings in the past couple weeks, those have been fun.
Wedding season's
always kind of fun when you play music, and then then you party afterwards. But yeah, that's always new for me.
Doing pretty good. I'm in denial. Summer is over or nearing over, so just trying to slow life down is the goal. Take a vacation or something. I've just been working from home in a little dungeon in my first floor, staring at a computer all day. But yeah, trying to create time and space to relax is big. Make some music, hang out with friends, do things like that. But
record podcasts.
Record podcasts with Davey. That's
Davey,
not
baby.
gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Davey,
It don't
baby.
sound good.
It's Davey, baby.
All is well. I think folks should do check-ins more. I usually like to deflect on check-ins, but we won't unpack that because that's not what we're here for today.
That is a
man.
conversation
All right?
for us.
But that's another good topic for the series. Anyway,
Davey.
Hey, it's your boy Davey, baby.
I think he's really enjoying it.
I'm doing well. Can't complain. Right now I would say this is a season of transition on all levels. So, which just requires me to, stay focused and, just keep it tight and right with the Lord and keep creating music. Whenever I feel like whenever I'm in a headspace, in a spiritual space where when I'm close to God, I also feel like I'm also in a good creative space too. So, yeah, I'm definitely in that headspace right now, which feels good actually. It feels healthy, and that's it for me though.
And my brother Dante, first time meeting you, but let's hear about your life.
Yeah. No, it's
start at the beginning.
when I was a young boy. No, it's been good. I think that one of the things that I'm constantly trying to get better at is just like managing my time, which also means like managing my energy and how I prioritize things and just trying to do more of the things I love and less of the things I don't, and just trying to find that space. And I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and she's the light of my life, and I'm really, the kid, when you're around young kids, like you see the passage of time more because of how quickly they're growing up, and that's what that's caused in me is this urge to just try to be as present as possible all the time, because I know like this time is going by so fast, and it's caused me to not freak out about it, but actually to be more poised and to be more present when I'm interacting with her and just enjoying the time. So we actually were blessed to take a vacation. We went to Puerto Rico, which was my first time. My mom's side of the family are from the island, so that's part of my heritage, and to like go to the island for the first time was
See
like
your roots.
very special.
Yeah.
Very special. Yeah. But this show's not about that, but there's a lot I could say about that experience and what that meant to me. But yeah, to be down there with family and for me and my little girl to experience that together was like very, very cool.
That's powerful, man. I'm sure you met some family members, ancestors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? No, seriously, man. Like, I wish I could go like visit like my ancestral graves, and pay tribute.
Crazy. Yeah.
But no, that sounds powerful, and in fact you did that with your daughter and your mom, and that's even more special.
Very special.
And you got to shout out your empanada and pizza business, yo. What's good with that, man?
Yeah, well, this summer I hosted a series of pizza pop-ups. I did a 5-week long stint. Wadi came out, Davey Baby came out. I got into Neapolitan style pizza making like a few years ago. Like as a COVID gift, I bought myself one of those like portable pizza ovens, and just like making pizza.
And I can tell you, the empanadas, yo,
bro, is
a problem.
It's a problem.
Bro.
So my mom and I we're in the kitchen whipping them up, and it was a fun experience for me to do. I did a few pop-ups a couple of years ago, and this time I kind of wanted to like up the ante and like just to see how I would do with like walk up orders and like firing the pizzas on the fly like that. And it went really well. It went really well.
I mean, you went to Puerto Rico, so it must have went really well. You know what I'm saying?
I was able to afford a trip there. But yeah, it was
your employees.
It was good to like set out and plan to do something and then complete it. And I didn't. We're joking about it, but I didn't do it for the money. The money was not great, like given like the amount of work that it took. It's like it wasn't worth it. It was absolutely a passion project, and I was able to cover our costs, which was a blessing. So it was just something cool that like I set out to do to just see how I would manage it. And when you begin to make things a job, it can take the fun and the passion out of it. It becomes like obligatory in a sense. For me, it didn't. I had fun the whole time. It was hard work. But I enjoyed it. I felt like I thrived, and it was cool. It was a unique and special thing to do. People that came out like it was just we cultivated a really cool space. It was like a BYOB type of thing, and like
it was a lot of fun.
It was a good time. It was good vibes every week.
My favorite part was you like twirling that pizza handle thing with like the biggest smile on your face. Like, I thought that was hilarious.
We're gonna start a video here.
Nah, but that's dope, man. Yeah, next time y'all get paid, y'all gotta come spend it on this man's pizza and empanadas. Are you still doing more pop-ups?
Nah.
Oh damn.
No, but if I do it again, a lot of people were like, you should do it in the fall because it'll be cooler outside.
That'd be fire.
So like people have requested that I do more, so I think it's a good sign.
Today's price is not yesterday's price.
It's not my favorite quote. Pizza's $30.
Inflation.
So like, bro, what?
Yeah, man.
That was fun. It was fun though. It was good.
Okay,
it was good.
dope. Yeah, man, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm out here. Coming back off injury, took a little spill on the mountain biking trail on the mountain.
That's what you want us to think.
As opposed
every time I see you, it's a different story. I've only seen you once, but
that joint's been hurting for months now.
Well, I mean,
it just won't get better. I don't know what's going on.
Man. It was always sore. What's up?
I did tear a ligament. Hopefully I didn't actually break anything. I don't think I broke anything.
You tear a ligament.
Yeah, that is months since recovery. I actually tore my ligaments from another mountain biking accident in my left wrist before. That's
I still don't know why you mountain bike.
But like, the mobility is like that's like the furthest back I can bend my wrist right now. Yeah. No, because like
it's
yeah, y'all
maybe
gotta
go the other
get your
way.
mobility. Yeah. I'm a guitarist, so left hand mobility does need to be a little bit.
This one's going. Maybe come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're a pianist, you should have a little bit more mobility.
I'm on this way.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That is.
Well played.
It's Davey Baby.
You don't want to catch me in the streets looking like this. You know what I'm saying?
Just test my wrist.
Nah, but yeah. You ain't gonna catch me lacking too much longer, hopefully. So yeah.
All right, cool. Well, tune into this ad.
Thank you for joining the Do Everything with Love podcast. If you'd like to continue to take the journey with us, please hit us up at withLove across all streaming platforms. Our music is everywhere, all right? And if you want a physical copy, Hit us up at bandcamp.com, and you might even score yourself a signed copy of our album. Thanks.
So, we are doing a series now. This is season 3 of the Do Everything with Love podcast on millennial trends in the church. And today's topic is, what kind of church do millennials prefer to attend in 2023? Large church or house church? Now, to give you some context, let's hear from our panel of gentlemen here. What do we consider to be a house church?
A church in the house.
Church in the house, yeah. Probably no more than 20 people maybe?
Definitely no more than 30.
I mean, I guess depending on how big your house is. Right?
Not this house.
Okay, so and there's a pastor established or a leader established among the group, typically. All right, so these members are attending the church regularly, on whether that's Sunday or Bible study, let's assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would also say that I don't think that it literally has to be in a house per se. I think it could be described as like just an organic, like small gathering.
Yeah, that they meet regularly.
Yeah, probably.
All right, cool. And I bring up house church because house churches have definitely been trending over the years. I feel like there's been a departure from bigger churches to now house churches, where people are starting their own gatherings and breaking bread and having more fellowship that way. Now, a house church to a big church would be considered a small group, but but let's talk about large church or mega churches. I'm considering that to be anything bigger than like 200 people.
Yeah, I think the classification, I think a church over 300, I think, is technically considered a mega church.
Okay, so yeah, so there you go. We'll go with that. And obviously, there's established doctrine, there's established leadership that's put in place by some sort of bureaucracy. Let's just put it that way. All right, so now we understand what we mean by house church and let's just say large church for today's purposes. I wanted to bring up different concerns with the church at large, and maybe understanding by the end of this podcast what maybe you might prefer, whether you want to go to a house church or a large church, and what perhaps maybe the differences maybe, if there are any at all. We're about to find out. The first of these concerns, I think the most glaring one, is building intimacy in relationships. Shun, you're a co-pastor, a pastor of a thriving house church in Silver Spring, Maryland. One shout out to One Shot Church. So what does intimacy and relationship building look like in the context of a house church?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we like to put the church in a separate parameter or something. It's like the same question for me is, what does intimacy and relationships look like outside of church for people, right? It's genuine connection where somebody doesn't just know you by a face. They know your name. They know about you. They know your struggles. I think the whole goal of church is creating spaces where people can share with one another and create intimacy, right? So I would say house church has a benefit in terms of there not being as many people, where it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle on a Sunday if you choose to. So I think if you make a choice to say, hey, I'm gonna be in the back row, I come late, leave early, it is what it is. But you can do the same thing at a house church too. Hey, come when everybody's talking, all right, y'all, peace, I'll see you, So I think it's more so the intention of the person. But if we're defining intimacy and relationship, I think it's the same thing for all of us. Like, what it's like to have someone where you feel so safe that you will call them in a time of need. You'll call them and be vulnerable. You'll call them and be transparent. What does it look like to have other Christians in your circle that fit that bill? Yeah. And I think the church is notorious for relationships being difficult. And I don't think it should be that way. So, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, yeah, it's like, but why is it anything? Maybe people are just awkward in the street. Why should you? If you're awkward outside, you're going to be awkward in the church.
I mean, I feel like people can be awkward in church because, whatever sin is at play, or whatever wrong is at play, or whatever guilt is at play.
Yeah, and that's a issue with their doctrine, an issue with their stance with the Lord. That's the issue with a lot of things. So,
all right, hold on.
We'll be right back.
One eternity later.
So, great points that you made. I guess one thing that I do appreciate about a house church is, like, to me, the setting feels more intimate, because I feel like people can actually ask questions, right? You can actually stop and answer those questions. You can actually have, active dialogue that sometimes may steer whatever your plans are to the left, and that be okay, right? I mean, what is that like? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, so just background too. We all grew up. Well, Myron, David, and myself grew up in the church, in youth ministry there at church as well. I think youth ministry is the furnace, I will say, right? But we've experienced what it's like to put on productions to try and capture, especially high schoolers, middle schoolers, to come to church on a Friday. It's like, all right, what's the biggest show we can do? How much pizza can you buy? How many lights and smoke can you have? And we've experienced what it's like to fight with those above us in church to do some of that stuff and all of that. So it's a very attractional model. But I think the other side is to move away from production, where you do say, hey, let's throw all that out the window and let's meet people where they are, to say, okay, do you have a question? Let's ask. And I don't have to be out of the building by a set time and stick to my schedule. And I have 3 games planned and a sermon for 30 minutes. So you better not throw me off of what's happening. So it is a bit more relational. So it's just a different context. You know what I'm saying? So certainly a different experience there, which can happen in any church. A bit more difficult if I am programmatically producing things. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like in an environment like that, people do feel a sense of belonging, just the fact alone that they can, be able to stop and ask questions and learn.
But it's a by choice too. So that's the thing, I think, and we will certainly unpack this as well. It's like, how much of your feelings should go into your perspective about church is my pushback. I don't think people should be driven by, oh man, I feel this way, I feel that. It's like, great, I know how you feel, let's address that. But also, what's the purpose of church in general? What is the purpose of what you're doing? So if you're driven off of just feeling, man, I don't feel like I know nobody, the first time you go to any setting, you're not gonna know you're not gonna come into someone's house, sit down and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And even people that have been coming for weeks, they don't know us, they're not pouring out their life. It's really about what you intend to give and receive is going to have to push past some feelings. The same way of going on a first date, you're going to feel all type of stuff, right? You got to push through something to break through
first date.
all of that. I mean, not talking to you. Forever. You out of that, brother. Davies on something else.
No, that's cool. Yeah, and you brought up a good question. Why do we even go to church? Anybody want to answer that?
Don't get me started.
Okay, I'll start, right? Because I feel like, in general, I think people go to church for people go to church for many reasons. But from a biblical perspective, to me, going to church is building your faith, right? Faith is built by hearing the word. Also for community, right? To build relationships with people, and to create a sense of belonging, a sense of, hey, I'm actually going to church with people that I love and I can do life with, and it's bigger than just, I'm just coming on a Sunday, but perhaps, the bigger win is I have someone that I can do life with outside of Sunday. So it's a great kind of melting pot where people can come together and, establish those relationships, whether new or already existing, and build on top of that. So to me, that's why, I believe people should go to church. Now, of course, why people go to church in general, I feel like that's a huge spectrum. That's a whole topic in and of itself. Maybe another podcast episode in and of itself. But, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that? I guess from a biblical ideal point of view, I mean, Dante, let's ask you.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. Also, to put it in my own words, I go to church, to be fed, and like you said, hearing the word and building that and building faith. And there's something about the assembly of believers that is important, and I think critical to a person's journey as they navigate and build a relationship with Christ. I think that it's essential to have that connection with other believers, and we see it in the formation of the church. It was centered around people coming together, and so I do think that is essential. Now, there could be different philosophies and approaches of what coming together means. You could ask that question too, like, how do you define coming together?
Right,
just because of our world and the exponential growth of technology and how people connect now is vastly different from 50 years ago. So
right. I mean, for all
10 years ago.
For all I know, it could just be, hey man, here's my handle on the PS network, man. See me in Call of Duty.
My 6-year-old daughter plays Roblox on the iPad, and she has. I gotta look into this. She's got Roblox friends, people because it's an online open platform, and you go into these mini games inside of the game.
Yeah.
And so there are users in the game, and you see their handle above their character's head.
She actually has friends that she regularly plays with.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's
at 6 years old.
It's weird. And I'm like
that's their norm now.
Yeah, and I'm like, Lily, get out of the chat. Like, don't talk to people on there.
Right.
And she's so cute. I mean, she's 6. She's a child, so she's like, she'll say hi and stuff, and I'm like, don't talk to people. But yeah, I mean, just like so yeah, I mean, that's worth sort of beginning to unpack too. Is just like how people connect, and because you got a lot of people that won't agree with how another group might connect.
Sure.
It's like, oh, I don't do the online thing, or and people have pretty strong beliefs about that. So either way, though, I think that connecting with other believers is essential to our faith, in the way that in the same way we go to be fed from the Word and hear the pastor's perspective on how they're teaching, and how that builds into us. I think the relationships in an ideal setting would do the same thing. So I personally go to church to be fed.
Okay.
By those things.
That's what's up. I agree. Yeah, I think we're on the same page when it comes to that. So you talked about, connection and building relationship as being the reason why, you go to church. What does that look like at Bridgeway? What does that look like at such a large church? How is that established, and how is that something that, people can walk away feeling like they've connected with something?
Yeah, I mean, when I meet
someone.
when I meet new people that are attending the church, I'm quick to tell them, like, start serving somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Get involved.
Yeah.
With a church that has thousands of people, I think that's the way in.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know from playing with the worship ministry,
Yeah.
as soon as you started playing and serving, that's when you started building relationships.
Sure,
And
yeah, absolutely.
I urge newcomers all the time, like, get involved, start doing stuff, because that's how you can. That's kind of the quickest way to meet people, unless you join a small group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm naturally introverted, so I won't enter a public space and just strike up conversation.
Right.
For me, it's easier to to form a relationship and
Over an
begin
activity
talk
or something like
over
that.
doing
Mm-hmm.
something.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess, would you consider, as a producer, I'm interested to know, how do you create intimacy during your services? And how does that play a factor in your planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think using a diverse group of people to be on the platform to lead in worship, I think is the kind of the first step, because people can relate based off of how they're represented.
Yeah.
From a visual standpoint as well, a cultural standpoint. And
for
also,
those of you who don't know, Bridgeway is probably one of the most multicultural churches here on the East Coast. So just
there are over 50 nations represented in our church, and that's a big part of the initial phase of it. But also, I think that with everything we do, it's obvious and should be a given, but everything we do should point to Christ, should point people to Christ. Because once that happens, I think God's Spirit then begins to work in a person's heart, and I think that that's sort of the genesis of how the intimacy grows. And I think just the way that we were made is for relationships. And so I think that in a mega church setting, as we're putting the services together, I think it's an important thing that with whatever we do on the stage, whether that's worship or creative elements, and then the sermons and the word, as much as, community is in our name, so as intentional as we can be, to give people an opportunity to partake in what we're doing, I think that we hit our mark.
Now I know establishing an intimate setting in a room, say, because the auditorium fits 2,000 people.
No, it's 1,200.
1,200 people.
Yeah.
Okay, well, still, it's a large space that I think it's a feat in and of itself to create an intimate setting, and I hear you about putting people on the platform to see a reflection of themselves represented on stage, as well as making sure that everything is Christ-centered, because that's why people should come to church. And I guess, for me, understanding, the intimacy part of being at a church that size allows me to wonder, I guess, how do people walk away feeling like, what, I met someone that was cool today and I want to establish more of a relationship with them without having necessarily to serve or get involved, because, for some, and millennials, as we know, have been burnt out by being volunteering at church or being overused at church, boundaries not being set or boundaries being crossed, and so now I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are leaving, because it's what, how can I feel like I belong without feeling like I have to give something to the church in the form of volunteerism?
I think at that point it comes down to sort of the personality or the temperament of the person, because like you were saying, you can come and sit in the back and bounce afterwards, and we try our best. We have common spaces, and we have sort of a section of our building where after service there's coffee and food and stuff, and of course 1,000 people don't go, but there could be a couple hundred there, but it is the person's sort of
Choice.
It has to be their motivation to go, because you can't have life group style of intimacy with such a large assembly of people. Like, I'm not sure how possible that is. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but
Yeah. I mean, the Sunday thing to me is small group.
Yeah, like,
you know.
Yeah, we've got life groups that people can join. It's, so if we do our jobs with making sure the information is accessible, and easy to receive, you know, hopefully that can point people in the right direction of like, hey, you could do this. There's this event happening, or there's this life group that's centered around this focus. You could join. You know, if we do our best to make sure that information is out there, then I think people can get involved. But it does take the person's decision to be motivated enough to seek that out in a large church.
I think the only thing I wanted to double tap on was I think the intentionality of the person wanting to build a relationship. So a church can create the space, and it seems to me it's more organically, naturally created from a smaller setting, naturally, than from a larger setting. But at some point, the onus will be on the person to sustain, you know, relationships. And then from that point, it's the same, you know, across the board, because that's just human nature. At some point, you will have to intentionally reach out to people and, you know, and check on people and or serve somebody to some degree at some point, you know, to be able to have the reciprocity to sustain the relationship. That's all.
Reciprocity. Yeah.
Cool, sure.
I think you know, it's interesting because to hear about intimacy in both settings, right, house church and large church, you know, to me it seems more of the onus is on the person in the large church setting to get involved, to be there, to be motivated, to meet people, to do those things, versus a house church. The onus is not as heavy on the person because they're amongst maybe a small group of people who are going to bombard that person, that's, you know, with love, with hugs, whatever, and kind of that person has no choice but to maybe speak, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's very easy for a person in a large church setting to, like Shin was saying, like kind of sneak in and sneak out, versus not so easy in a house church setting, right? So, but you heard it here though. I mean, as far as I think it comes down to preference, right? As far as, you know, what you prefer. I think another thing that plays a factor in a church setting is presentation, right? So let's go back to the house church setting for a second, right? So, you know, there's the idea of what we had experienced in church of, you know, praise and worship, announcements, sermon, maybe more announcements, you know, altar call, whatever, right? House church, and not just speaking for, you know, one-shot church, but I think house churches across the board don't necessarily follow that model. You know, for some people, they do prefer that model, right? That model is definitely practiced at Bridgeway, at a large church. But I guess, Shun, you know, on your scale, what does that look like as far as presentation? Is that something that comes to mind as you're planning your Sunday, you know, service, Sunday gathering, let's call it, for your church?
No, I love that about the word Wadi brought up, intentionality. But you said preference and presentation. Two words I loathe when it comes to church. I don't think church should be about your preference. That's the problem I have, where we have put ourselves at the center of the church, and the church is to serve us, meet our needs, give us what we want. When biblically speaking, I love what Dante was saying. The church, we have to answer this question: is the church essential? It is. Biblically, it is supposed to be essential because a believer is connected to a body. So if you're not connected to a body, are you fulfilling what it is God has intended you to be a part of? So then I can't approach my body and say, well, today I don't prefer to be a part of this body, or my body is not treating me right. I don't prefer this, or my body didn't. And it's like, when I talk about presentation, it's like completely, and mind you, we didn't set out to plant a house church. We set out to plant a church, which in my head, back before COVID, 2019 is where we first started, and you know, we were lugging a sound system into a school, setting up chairs. I was playing sound man one Sunday. We pulled the screen and attached our screen. We had a big projector. We had everything set up because we're following the model of what it looks like to grow to a church like Bridgeway, because that is what success was defined as a church, right? We got to get 200 people. I was literally on the side of the street with our welcome signs. Come to church today, y'all. We set up flags. We had banners. We did presentation and branding. We went to a person, made the logo. We got marketing materials. We got our Wix website. We got everything presented properly.
Shout out Wix, yo.
My issue with that is, what if God does not desire that to be the method or the means by which success would come to the people we're supposed to reach? And I was not okay with that.
So you felt convicted doing all that?
No, I felt like, let's keep doing it until it works. And that's how I felt about ministry for so long. In the youth ministry context, you know, we up there dancing and singing, and we anything to drag people to church. What if God actually says it's success if you reach 12 people? Would you be okay with it?
Like genuinely reach 12.
Genuinely reach 12 people that I don't have to do a presentation for. We actually sit down, open the Bible, and we unpack life, we unpack scriptures, we educate people to become more literate in what it means to apply the scripture to your life. So just to answer the question before I continue ranting, which could go 30 minutes. Which
Don't worry, I'm going to cut you off.
Don't you dare. What if the church was meant to actually do what God says about equipping believers so that they would be mature to go out and do work,
Building disciples.
versus to sit down, make disciples, versus to sit down and be presented to in a way that works for them this week, and the next week they go down the street to another church because they don't like it.
So to your point, if you're equipping people, then wouldn't growth be organic then?
No, I think it's very intentional about to equip someone means, to Wadi's point, they have to be receptive to understand, hey, I'm here to grow. I'm here to, if I'm intentionally being equipped, I must know that I'm here to receive something to then use, and I'm here to give something that others might be equipped as well.
Case in point, Jesus only had 12 disciples. Like, he could have had way more. He could have been like, let me get all these disciples together. Like, let me get 13,000 disciples.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to take over the whole world. It's like, I'm going to get 12. I'm going to impart my ways, my teachings, so that they know this thing down cold, and I'm going to let them do the work. Like you were saying, what if you're only called to minister to like just a few people, and you build them up properly so that they can go out and plant seeds and bring people into the harvest? Like,
Well, that's the thing, though.
That's a huge thing.
I think when you're equipping people and you're bringing people into harvest, those people are going to come to wherever they're getting equipped and being fed.
Don't use that word, be fed. You're about to trigger me too.
I'm just saying. But listen, at the end of the day,
but we're not babes. Like,
Yeah,
we need
you
to get to the point where we
feed
we
yourself.
feed ourselves.
If the Bible is the source of life, are you only fed by a preaching style that is your preference? Oh, I'm not being fed here. That preacher ain't really talking. You know what I'm saying? He didn't hoop today. I'm not being fed here. He didn't preach about relationships today. I'm not being fed here. How dare we talk about being fed when the scripture, if it is the source of life, should not believers be equipped to be fed every day of the week and come to church to do something else?
well, I mean, to me, being fed, part of it is coming to church, right? Like, you are being equipped. It's not all of it, but it's part of it, right?
And it is a. And I'm gonna stop. They ramped me up.
I'm just saying.
It is deception, and it is a tool
So what
that
about-
I think that, and we don't put everything on the enemy, but I would put this on him. It is a tool that he has used to neuter Christians to think that all they have to do is come and listen to a pastor to be fed. And then we go on YouTube and get Stephen Furtick. Then we go on YouTube and we down in Tulsa with Mike Todd.
Shots fired.
We down.
Hey, yo, officer down.
We do.
Let him
We think we can only be fed by going to these people who are great communicators. When what if the ultimate communicator wrote 66 books for you to sit in your house, open them up, and have the Holy Spirit, who's the teacher, actually feed you? But no, we think, I got to be fed.
So okay, let me ask you this, Tashun. What's the difference between being equipped and being fed, in your mind?
I don't think there's a difference. I think, to me, the difference is fed.
There has to be a difference, 'cause fed is a trigger word for you.
Yeah, because fed is the modern vernacular that I've heard that people use very selfishly. If I'm fed, you will be fat, like a literal fat cat, right? I'm just feeding myself. Equipped means I'm receiving something to go and utilize it.
Purposes.
Right. It's purposeful.
Yeah, so I think, let's nix fed then. Correct myself. I hate being fed because when you're being fed, there's no purpose but to take a crap
You just
after
take
that,
it.
right? You eat and you
fat.
crap. Yeah, unless you understand that you're utilizing what you're being fed for a purpose. So that's why I think equipped is the difference. But is it intentionally to be used, or is it just for yourself? I'm being fed. I'm going through right now.
Okay, so I'm just
I think it also
Yeah.
kind of depends on where a person is in their journey.
Yeah.
If you are new to the faith, it might look like you going somewhere where the teaching is dynamic, and I think for the more mature and seasoned Christians that have that foundation in the church, whether they grew up in the church, you should, I say should loosely, but like the hope is that you are mature in the faith enough where you are in your word every single day and you are able to receive what God has for you in those ways, and you wouldn't necessarily expect someone young in the faith to have the same sort of like steadfast motivation and understanding to know to do that. And so they need that a new believer might need more spoon feeding in that respect, not totally, but at least in some way, right?
For sure.
And so I think that, just like we were saying about a person's motivation to be intentional of building relationships, it also I think is applied to a person's zeal to grow spiritually. So, some have the wherewithal, and we see this all the time with a new believer. Sometimes, a lot of times, new believers are in their word more than pastors. I'm being speculative, but like, someone
fire is there for like somebody
they can't get enough of it.
Yeah. They're hungry.
But again, that's the attitude, personality, and temperament of the person, and that's different for a lot of people. There's so many different types of people.
To me, it sounds like there's different types of appetite.
Yeah,
Or different levels of appetite.
Yeah, and it depends on the time. It depends on where you are. It depends on what you're going through. It depends on how tired. And I think when we are fed, yes, it leads to pooping. But when we eat, we're given energy.
Yeah,
that's the life. So when I'm being fed, I now have the calories and the sugars and the energy to go out and do. So I think we could play the semantics game of like what fed means, but like I can interpret it in a different sense.
But interestingly enough, like when you talk about that, I feel like most of the people who do like the church hopping or like they're looking for their preference and stuff isn't really the new believer. It's more so like the people who've been in church for a while.
That's a good point.
And like they should be at the point where they can feed themselves, but they're still relying on like, oh well, this music ain't right or it was just something I hate that people say.
Oh gosh.
Like, especially as a musician, it's like, first of all, like there are the amount of things that we have to give to God.
Yes.
Like our praise and worship is literally one of the only things. Like even tithes and offering, that's we're just giving back to God what He already gave us. Our worship and praise is literally the only thing that we have to give to God, and we still find a way to make that about us.
Yeah,
it's so annoying.
I so agree with you, and what you were saying about preference that hit me too, because it's me projecting, but like I hate when people talk about preferences because. And I'm trying my best not to be judgmental, but like
judge them.
I don't mean this. I don't mean this in a judgy way. I really don't.
No judgment zone.
I'm not being judgmental. I promise you. But I'm going to talk about myself. I can see and hear God in anything. Well, okay, you could probably twist that. What I mean is, I can receive from God through any style of teaching. I can receive from God through any style of music. Because it's not even about the genre at that point. If I'm worshiping, it could be everybody rags on country. It could be a country gospel set. Like I'm gonna glean something.
Yeah.
Because that's I understand the assignment of why I'm there in that space. I can hear a boring lecture and be blessed by that in the same way I'd be blessed by somebody hooping and hollering. I can receive from anywhere. Well, so like it's not about preference. I think is something that like irritates me as well. Especially like from a production standpoint. It's like let's do this to get this crowd and this to get that crowd, and it gets exhausting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this the other day about why is it that we have praise and worship and song, and then we have the sermon, right? And like that's been the structure for as long as I think any of us can remember. And when I do think about that, I think psychologically, there's that, indoctrination that's taking place, right? How many times you memorize the lyrics of a song before you actually memorize any passage of text, right? Like to me, when they all are in sync together, and a church can capitalize on that in a way that they can indoctrinate their belief system upon you through those two different ways. Now, it may not necessarily look like that at every church, right? Especially at house churches where there aren't necessarily any denominational standards to abide by. Right?
That's where you get that from?
What?
Denominational standards? There aren't any. Like doctrine?
Doctrine.
There is doctrine.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, from the Bible point of view, but I'm talking about like
all doctrine should be from the Bible, but that's not the point.
Are you talking about they're not a specific
which is,
denomination?
Yeah, I'm talking about for like a specific denomination. Yeah, like Protestants, Methodists, Episcopals, like they all have a certain way of doing church, right? Like they have certain standards that they abide, rules, liturgy, doctrine that they abide by. But in house churches, like they're not applying for any, necessarily for any denomination per se, right? Like, let's use a real world example. Shun, are y'all part of a larger denomination that you guys
churches
abide?
I have been to, or even our church growing up, it's non-denominational anyway, right? So it's like it's not.
Why are there so many denominations? That's another episode.
I mean, yeah, you can go down to doctrinal differences, right? On a lot of what I would say are secondary points.
Yeah.
So how people are baptized. We go into AME with where the black people were literally forced to form a denomination because they were not allowed into another church. But I think for us now, a lot of that church history we could unpack. But I just think when it comes down to sound and doctrine, like that, denomination, doctrine, two different things for me. Like sound doctrine based on biblical principles should be at the root of any church. There is the risk you run of saying, okay, well, we're not connected to anything. So our house church then can become a cult very quickly. Like then people drinking Kool-Aid and punch and slicing themselves. That's something else. It's like there should be a core of biblically where does church derive from. But that's another episode as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, every church has their set of doctrine. Everybody reads the Bible and interprets it differently. What you get from the word might be something different than I get from the word, right? Those teachings apply in certain different ways, especially when you're talking about forming a church around what you believe the Bible stands for, right? So I guess, back to my point earlier about presentation, right? Between a large church setting and a house church setting, right? Like in a house church setting, I'm like, do y'all even have like praise and worship necessarily like every Sunday? And like,
No.
Is there conviction behind that? Like, why don't you have praise and worship, or or why not?
So I mean, we have, and this has been the most liberating season of ministry for me, I would say ever, actually, where it's just like, we are almost devoid of structure, which not in church structure in terms of what Sunday looks like. Our structure has become, so currently we're reading through Romans, right? So we come in, sit down, do check-in. Some weeks we might sing a song together. We try to still do communion every first Sunday of the month. We will do communion together, which will usually be, we'll sing a song, do communion, do some reflection there. But other than that, we just literally crack open Romans and we get as far as we can get for that week. We ask questions and we kick the scripture around. So it's nothing is mandated other than me. I do want to still lean on and not toss out some traditional elements such as communion being, hey, this is a sacrament God gave us to remind us of Christ and should be done regularly, right? So that's one thing where I'm like, no, let's hold on to that. But there's no emphasis. And I think the other part too is like, I mean, you guys can speak to it more than me. When you get into church musicians, what churches can afford, the people that actually come, the setup. The fact is we actually have some musicians at our church where we could do that. We could also pay to bring in some people, but this is just not, it's no longer the emphasis of presenting in that way. We'll do worship nights here or there differently, but it's not a core part of doing full sound system setup.
Like
musicians.
Church can't happen without.
Yeah, and that is a thing for me as well, but yeah.
It makes me think, does praise and worship have to be musical? Does it have to be through music?
Come on, I think it's a huge misnomer that we think worship and praise is music.
It's music, yeah. I think that I'm sure there are a lot of people that associate that with just music.
Yeah. So this isn't recent, but maybe some years back, we had a family reunion. My mom wanted to on Sunday morning put together like a little service for the family that we're believers and wanted to kind of get together and have community and church together. And she asked me to lead worship, and I was like, "What do you mean by that?" She was like, "Could you play some music and sing?" I was like, "Mom, I don't sing." I was like, "This is gonna be awkward." And she was like, "Yeah, but I really want to have this." I was like, "Well, you don't have to have praise to praise God. You don't have to worship God only through music, I was like, we should do something a little more organic that doesn't feel forced. We're stepping outside of probably our giftings. Now, sure, I would say I have to a degree a musical gift, not so much in singing. So I could accompany somebody.
Love would love it anyhow.
True, done with the earnest heart. But I could tell it was like this is gonna be awkward. I think what would have been more natural and what we ended up doing was just like, we went through a season of some medical situations where it was like we can have testimonies. Like we definitely saw how God came through in a couple examples. Yeah. And it created like and then it sparked more like popcorn testimonies, as churches call it. Yeah. But it was an earnest, heartfelt community of believers now focused on Christ and worshiping and praising Him for recent activities in their life where they see Him come through. So, it doesn't have to be through music. And I would say in a smaller setting, because that was definitely a smaller setting, there's more flexibility typically. So I think that is a benefit in, we'll say, small house church, where it doesn't have to be music, where you just God's come through in this way today. It's worship in this thing.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I do believe that. I mean, we could have a whole sermon series on worship.
Another podcast episode. What is worship?
That's a whole series, right? That ain't even an episode. That's a whole series. But absolutely. I beg that question about is song and word necessary in church? Because I think there is purpose to it. I think there's tradition and behind it and intention behind it. But it doesn't necessarily have to look that way. I don't necessarily believe that. That's something that if you don't have musicians or you don't sing in your church, then you're not a church, right? That's a great point. Myron, you brought up a point earlier while we were taking a little break about something I can't remember what it was.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying it was interesting because three of us, we grew up in the same church, and it kind of started out from like a small church and eventually got to a fairly large church, and like we were kind of talking about like, did we even recognize that transition? Like, did we notice it? Like, when did we even realize like, oh, this is a big church now all of a sudden?
Right. It wasn't like our focus.
Yeah. Like, and that growth really happened very organically. This is like before like maybe Facebook was a thing. I think you still had to have a college, email to get it on Facebook. So there was no like big social media.
It was straight word of mouth.
Yeah, it was straight word of mouth. Our praise and worship was fairly standard. I mean, we had pretty decent setup, pretty decent equipment.
We had a sound system.
Yeah, we had some good musicians.
Y'all didn't have a Black Planet page?
Nah,
Got that me hunted.
No, but yeah, we were fairly bare bones, but we just, a community of people who just really cared about one another, wanted to worship together, and, it was very real and organic.
I like what I like what you're saying there, and it goes to Shun's point that he made earlier, that like it's, as long as I think the intention, especially for church leaders, to focus on equipping and discipling the people that do attend you, the believers that do attend your church, it's not so much about the numbers. I think churches, especially mega churches, get caught up in, how do I increase my numbers? What's the right ad I need to put out on Facebook and Instagram, or what pleather pants do I need to wear today? To be, like to me, it's
Baby.
It's Davey, baby.
to me, I think it, that organic reach that takes place when you're equipping happens naturally. Like to me, if you're equipping someone, Shun was saying earlier when we were taking a little break, it was like, well, what were you saying, Shun? Like, oh, it's not about growing, or it's not about bringing people that they might not necessarily attend your church. Well, I would say that if somebody is hearing what you're saying and therefore being reached because they've been equipped by their church to speak to that person and reach that particular person, that person more than likely is probably going to attend your church. Whether they do or not is their choice, but at the end of the day, my point is that natural growth is going to take place. I think that is a healthy indicator of church when that growth is taking place without having necessarily the emphasis and the focus on how can we increase our numbers, because then I feel like the numbers will increase if the focus is correct, which is on equipping your saints.
Hey y'all, this is Amber, president of Let Love Rise Foundation Incorporated, and we have officially launched. Check out letloverise.org. If you are a community organization with volunteer needs, go and sign up on our platform to promote all of your volunteer needs. And if you are a volunteer looking for ways to connect to your local community, looking for ways to make a difference, go on letloverise.org to sign up for these volunteer events. I'll see y'all at the next event.
So with that being said, I know we're coming up here on time a little bit, but I kind of want to go around the room. I want to hear everyone's preference. I know it's a bad word, Shun, I know, but preference as far as what they prefer. As far as do you prefer a house church, or do you prefer in a large setting? And let's talk about it here for a quick second here. Let's start over here, Myron. What do you prefer? Do you prefer being in a large setting or in a more intimate house church setting?
I mean, the smaller the better for me. Like you said, you're an introvert. I think pretty much most of us are introverted. We prefer, smaller community, people we know we can have conversations with and, relate with. Don't get me wrong, like large churches, they can have, great productions. They can have more just because they have more resources and are able to help in other ways.
I hope they help people in other ways.
Yeah. But like they'll, have resources for people who are in need in the church.
Yeah.
And then that's great, to be able to use those things that God has given you to really actually help and not just equip the saints spiritually, but people they need help, and as the church we should be the first ones on the front line.
Answer the call.
But from just the spiritual setting, like the smaller church where you can really get to know people, build relationships, and like really live with one another and hold each other accountable and stuff like that. It's hard to do that in a larger group, and I think that's more than anything is what's affecting this current generation of believers. Man,
we're a bunch of Zoomers now, right? Everything is online, right? Yeah. Like, I feel like it's harder for people to come out to do actual stuff. I feel like we're maybe now, like we're 2 years removed from the pandemic, and maybe now we're just starting to see people like go to concerts and do more things outside of the comfort of their homes. So yeah, I definitely feel like there's a large group of people now more than ever that agree with your sentiment. So, what about you, Dante?
I actually prefer a large setting because I think like the foundation of my faith was deeply personal and deeply independent of other people. The start of my faith journey was like my parents bought me like the beginner's Bible, and I'm 3-4 years old. I read through that thing every day, and then they bought me like the VHS series of all of these Bible stories and cartoons. Yeah, y'all remember those?
Yeah. Bro, I grew up on VeggieTales.
But that sounds cool. I want that now.
You came a little after me though.
What you talking about? The ones where it's like the two white people and the one Indian dude, like they went back in time.
Yeah.
The Bible's,
No, what's that?
That's Hanna-Barbera? Okay, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
These are. If you see an image, you'll remember it.
Yeah.
It's very, very characteristic of the style. But yeah. Anyway, I just knew that even at the young age, I wanted a relationship with this amazing God who created everything and that loves me, and those stories really captivated me and sort of like arrested my spirit in the best way possible. And so now, of course, I will whatever space I occupy, I will inevitably build relationship and establish connections. For sure, that's going to happen. But I don't need that to happen to feel connected and to receive from God. So, I like going in and being under the radar.
Okay.
And, so like a large crowd, I think is ironically conducive to that.
It feels more like family.
A lot of people would classify that like a large group as being like
feeling like a number.
Feeling like you can't really connect, but
Yeah.
I actually enjoy it. So now when I like go to like conferences and things, I like going and being anonymous. And some of that too is I work for a church, so like it's a different perspective that I have. But I prefer a larger, because like if I go to a house church, I have to be in the mood to talk to people,
Yeah.
And people that know me or begin to know me are always surprised when I say I'm introverted, because because I'm a performer and I'm on stage and I'm in front of people. And
I hate when people assume that.
everybody's like you're an extrovert. Like, when I tell them I'm an introvert, they're shocked by that.
I think there are more performers that are introverted than me.
I think so, yeah. And so much of what I do is in front of people, and so much of what I do involves other people and communicating with other people. That when I want to be fed, I like to be alone.
Yeah.
Or at least have the opportunity to fly under the radar for a bit.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you're basically saying that you enjoy large churches, so you can fly under the radar, but still keep that and guard that intimacy that you have with God.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty cool, and ain't nothing wrong with that either. Like I said, I do believe that everyone has a preference as far as whether they enjoy large setting or small intimate setting, and you have that right to do so. I don't think necessarily it's a right or wrong answer to that. But Shun, how about you, sir? I mean, you've experienced both, and what do you prefer?
I refuse to say prefer. I prefer to not prefer, but I think it's about seasons. So it's about seasons, and the term or phrase is like grow where you're planted, right? So it's I believe God sends people to churches. He sends you, right? And it might not be, I fell out of my bed and the Lord said, go down this street and turn here. No. But I do think it should be very intentional, like Wadi said, in their seasons where you are. So the season I am in is house church, and it's very intentional in terms of this is my new lens of what church looks like. I do think there is a wave of moving in that direction. I don't know what the next season of what God is doing holistically for the church, especially in America, will look like. But I know this is where we are right now, and that's my preference. And it might change in a year. And I said preferences, so I take that back. I take it back. This is where I'm at.
We all heard it.
This is where I feel like I should be. But I also don't doubt, and I think God has to really humble and continue to remind me too. I met someone who goes to one of the larger church conglomerates in the area that I will not name, and just hearing her testimony, I was like, God's still using church, period, right? So I think the other side is very easy to be like, if you're not a house church, you ain't in the will of God. And that's not how I feel, because of God reminding me through people's testimonies and stories, the church is his, it's not mine. And he will use it as he sees fit. I think it's just really pushing people to have the right mindset about church being a necessity and how we view church holistically.
That's the bottom line.
David, don't get me started on you. But yeah, no, that's all.
That's the bottom line. No, and I no shade to any of the mega churches or house churches out there. Like, we appreciate all y'all, and if anything, you guys are all doing amazing work, and testimonies, I'm sure, that speak for it. So yeah, it sounds like you're more adaptable from season to season versus taking sides, right? So which I can appreciate, because you gangster like that. Wadi, how about you, sir? What do you prefer?
I don't know. There's a season where I served a very large church and a very small church, and I actually really like the dichotomy. My number one strength is adaptability, at least based on Strength Finders. So I enjoy both.
Okay.
I would say, but like my knee-jerk reaction, if someone were to ask me that, seasonally, I'm kind of digging like churches that aren't cool, just because.
But they're corny.
No, not at all. Well, I don't know. Just
They're just not.
random.
They're just not like hip to the trends, right? They just stick to the word and they speak.
Yeah.
They speak the truth.
Yeah, I don't want.
You know what's trending on TikTok.
Yeah, and maybe it's just from binging like the whole Hillsong thing that was on whatever streaming thing, or like I listened to the podcast about Mars Hill.
Mars Hill.
Yeah, so if it seems to be really vanilla and like low key, metaphorically, it kind of gives my brain less distraction and kind of just cut straight to kind of like the word in the heart of things. But I like traveling around a bit and just tasting all the types of.
Said like a true musician.
Yeah, I can be a little transient like that, but.
No, that's what's up. Nah, so it sounds like you appreciate both. So and yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I would say that I'm with you on that. I appreciate both. I appreciate the small church setting because it feels like family. I feel like there's more freedom to ask questions, but I also have to be in the mood for it too. Kind of like what Dante was saying. And also, like I like the large church setting because I agree with you, Dante, in that regard. The kind of the anonymity. Did I say that right? Of kind of whatever.
We'll take it.
Kind of flying under the radar. To attend church to get equipped. And also being able to feel like I'm amongst family. And as a musician, I feel like people, especially because when I'm playing on stage, people know me before I know them, and I feel like it kind of creates that natural attraction to want to say, hey, like I saw you on stage, like and they feel like they're family, even though I may not know much about them. That sense of belonging, it means a lot to me. And also understanding that like even the reason why we have One Shot and Bridgeway represented here is because I've attended both, right? Like I love Bridgeway because I consider Bridgeway one of my home church for sure. But then One Shot Church is also like a home church to me because we all grew up together and we all have very deep relationships and they all hold me accountable and can kick me in my side when I'm tripping. So like I can appreciate both sides of the court, so to speak, and say that I think they're both vital to the kingdom of God, period. And I think that as long as we can stay focused on not building numbers, but more so equipping the saint and being able to create that relationship that goes beyond Sunday morning is what church should be about, right? And the moment that Christ-centered focus is deviated is where I feel like a lot of churches end up hurting people, and so. Which then those people start deconstructing their faith. That's another episode you should watch. Back in our first episode of the series. But anyways, any final thoughts from anybody else?
Nope.
Yeah.
I think one thought though is that I do encourage folks to be consistent and go to a church, wherever that may be,
Period.
whatever setting that may be,
Yeah.
to see it as essential and to know when you go to church. It's not just to receive, it's to give as well. And I can't give someplace that I flippantly go, or I'm there every now and then. I go when I feel like it. It's like, no, you're not truly there to give if you're not intentionally going somewhere. So I think any believer is a part of a living organism, and if you're not connected to it, then something's dying. So it is that question about just really raising how essential do you see church as being, because you got to go somewhere versus people like, oh, I'm in between church, I'm healing from church, whatever. It's like, no, please go to a church and be consistent.
So it sounds like it's more, a person that's attending church is more like an investment than just a one-off.
Yeah, consistency, commitment. These are words that come with
Millennials
church.
are scared of.
Yes. And that's a whole larger thing. It's like, I think we begin to see church as if it's convenient enough, I'll be a part of it. And I think that's a huge departure from what the church is. It's a departure from what the church is.
Well, look at that, y'all. That's a great word from Shun. I want to thank Shun, Dante, for joining us on the Do Everything with Love podcast show, and I'm sure we'll have you guys on the show again in the near future because I just thought about like 3 or 4 more topics to bring up. I feel like this season is going to go on. It's going to be a long season, y'all. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about here and chew on. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this show and this episode of Millennial Trends in the Church on the Do Everything with Love podcast. As always, we're going to end it by saying love God, love people, and do everything
with love.
Love.
All right, y'all.